then Mr. Michael Kramer is the vice chairman of the group, and we will be leading the efforts within the task group. We have, from our first meeting, developed our structure and our management team, and you will see here the names of the various chairmen for the groups. We've divided it up into 4 different groups, 1 for the CPM text and then 3 for the technical studies. You'll note that Working Group 3 on the 40 to 50 gigahertz range has 3 names in the chairman. Because of the volume of work in that group, we were going to have two vice chairs of that group together, one from the mobile side and one from the satellite side, because this is a very important range of spectrum for the satellite folks. But we had 2 satellite names put forward, and we couldn't pick between them, so we ended up with 3 names in there. So I think that will really help when we get down to the volume of studies that are expected in that range. And Alex had mentioned that Working Group 4, that we had some difficulty finding a chairman, but we did get one. So we do have someone. I think he was kind of voluntold to participate. So we thank him very much for that, Rauno from Nokia. As well, we decided this time to do things a little bit differently than the joint task group from the last cycle. And in order to strengthen and facilitate the communications between the management team and the 6 different regional groups, we invited the agenda item 113 coordinator or responsible person from each of the regional groups to participate in the management team. So they will be sitting in the management team, and this is so that they can advise us as to what's happening within their regions and give us heads up as to difficult issues that we might be facing in the task group, difficult studies that are coming in, frequency band preferences, etc., and then also provide information from the task group back to their regional groups so that everything is very transparent. And hopefully it will also increase some cooperation between all of the groups so that we all have one kind of common purpose in mind to advance the agenda item. We also, at our first meeting, took a look at the scope of the work, and this is just the scope for each of the individual working groups. This is all available as well on the task group website, so I won't go into details on this. This is also on our website, but some people may not have seen it. This is the forward meeting schedule. So, Mario, there are 5 meetings, but they're spread out over the next 2 years. They're not all next year. So, our first meeting, once we hoped to have the parameters, is the 15th to the 23rd of May next year. This meeting is firm. We have the CICG booked. We're also expecting the task group to have larger volumes of people attending than the typical working party meetings in the ITU, so we need the space, which is not available within the ITU buildings itself, so we have to meet in the CICG. You'll notice that there are 2 meetings in there in September of next year and in September of the year after where the CICG is not available. So for these 2 meetings, we are hoping to find hosts, a host country to host the task group meetings. If that happens, then these dates, at least for the 6th meeting, could shift. So stay tuned for that. Our work plan, someone also said that it's going to be tough to get all the studies done in the amount of time that we have, and this is true. You'll notice that when we start our 2nd meeting next May, we really only have 4 meetings to get the studies done. And this is because we would like to have the last meeting devoted to the completion of the CPM text to summarize all of those studies. So with only 4 meetings to get all of the studies done, that's not a lot, because there are a tremendous amount of studies that need to be done. This has also been mentioned, the frequency band overlap between several of the agenda items. I put it here for information as well, because this is an issue that we will have to deal with. What came out of CPM1 said that the responsible groups for these agenda items are to coordinate between them on how the studies will be done. And to answer the question on HAPS that was asked earlier, As the task group chairman, I would be more than happy if 5C would do those studies. I think that the bands that overlap with the HAPS agenda item already have mobile allocations in them, and as such, 5C has to do sharing studies between HAPS and that mobile allocation. And I would assume then that they would ask 5D for the parameters of the mobile service in that band, and it would get the IMT 2020 parameters. So I do plan on talking to the chairman of 5C about this, but it is my view that with the number of studies that the task group has to do, that if there's another service also trying to get into the band, that maybe they could help us out in that responsible group and do some of that work. This is just a graphic for, as well, just to show the frequency band overlap between the different agenda items, showing as well the responsible groups for those agenda items. So I was asked to talk about the challenges. So these are just logistical challenges, not challenges as to how we're all going to agree at the end in WRC 19 on spectrum. But as I've pointed out from the task group side, meeting room availability is certainly a challenge for us. So we're looking for hosts for meetings number 3 and 6. If anyone's interested, you can come up and chat with me afterwards. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. We also have a tremendous number of potential studies to do. So there has been talk about prioritization. Now, it's not up to the task group management team to prioritize the bands, but I would hope that the regional groups prioritize them and bring studies in accordingly so that we can be focused in our studies. Short time frame, we only have a year. As I said, we hope to have all the studies finished by the May meeting in 2018, which means we only have 1 year to do all of this work. So that, too, is going to be a huge challenge. There's also been no consensus on some of the sharing parameters in the contributing groups. So this is going to be a difficult issue because 4A and 4C in particular are going to meet right before our task group meeting. It was aligned like this so that the participants at those meetings could just join into the task group afterwards. But what it means is that we may not get their protection criteria until the deadline for the task group contributions is passed. So this is another difficult issue that we have to try and find some way around. As well, there's going to be a short time frame between the availability of the propagation models. As I said, the study group 3 is meeting in the week right before the deadline. So really, they finished their meeting on the day of the deadline for them to send the parameters to the task group. And then we've got 6 weeks or so until the task group meeting. So, of course, that won't be available. Hopefully, there'll still be enough time there for people to put some studies together. The overlap of the frequency bands with the other agenda items is going to require some coordination, so that may be a challenge. And then the potential impact of national and regional identification of frequency bands for 5G before the studies are complete and before WRC 19. Everybody wants to be first to 5G, and everybody wants to be leading in it, and some countries and some regions are already picking bands. Well, what does that mean for WRC 19? I know it means that for the task group, we're going to certainly have those bands prioritized for study, and I expect we'll get a lot of studies on those. But if some countries are already implementing 5G before WRC 19, what does that mean happens at WRC 19 for the identification of bands? So that is another issue that may become a challenge. I was told when I was putting this together that I made it sound too difficult and I should talk about some opportunities as well. So obviously there's the opportunity to see perhaps if there's some new sharing mechanisms that we can come up with that enable coexistence of multiple services and applications. There's an opportunity to be innovative in achieving efficient use of spectrum, and there's the opportunity for us to demonstrate collaboration amongst all of the different interests within the task group in order for it to accomplish its work. I liked the comment that ECCPT1 is agile and is ready to go and ready to meet the challenge, and I think the task group will be as well. Of course, it depends on the membership, so that's all of you, and I look forward to working with you in the task group. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Cindy. Any questions from your side to Cindy on the task group 5.1 tasks, challenges and opportunities? Yes, there in the back. Please, go ahead.
Hi, Dean Bubley. I asked a question before. You touched on the issue of what happens if there's existing 5G networks before WRC 19. It's looking increasingly likely there will be 5G or pre-5G quite a bit earlier. What happens if they, if you like, establish facts on the ground or use bands that aren't in the studies?
Well, my fear would be that people roll out this and then the sharing studies show that it's not possible to share. That's not going to look very good. But I guess from the task group perspective, it's not so much a concern. It will be a concern, I think, when we get to WRC 19 with the administrations, because if there is already spectrum rolled out and we don't identify it for IMT for some reason at the conference, like, what does that look like? What does that mean for the ITU process and how effective the ITU process is if people are already deploying 5G networks in spectrum that we don't identify? So I think those are questions that we're all going to have to ask ourselves over the next few years as we work our way into WRC 19. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you very much.
Cindy, one question from my side. Maybe if I have you here then. You said very clearly that there is only one possibility, or a possibility of 1 year regarding the studies. This has certainly something to do with the overall speed up of the technological dynamics in telecommunications, but also with regards to the overall WRC process in there. So do you have any views how we can increase the speed there to make more, to adapt more to the dynamics in telecoms? That could be one issue which will arise at the WRC or shortly before that. And do you have any idea in that regard? Because we have seen that during the discussions at the JTGs that we make more and more efforts to find the right parameters, but up to now we see that sometimes the technology is not evolved enough to provide these parameters, and this is the more or less the chicken and egg problem we are in. So it would be interesting to see your views how we can adapt better to this dynamics. Thank you.
Thanks. I think this is one of the first times that we are trying to identify spectrum for a technology that is not yet developed. In the past, when we were doing agenda items, IMT advanced parameters were already available, IMT 2000 parameters were already available. So I know 5D has got a challenge as well, just to get us all of the information out of the February meeting, and I expect it will be a difficult meeting. But the reason that we have to do the studies in such a short time frame is not because of the technology being so fast. It's because of the process for the ITU, and the fact that you have to deliver CPM text over a year before we ever get to the conference is a huge, like, that's a year where, you know, maybe we could be doing more studies if we had the time. And it's a bit of a shame, and speaking as Canada, we certainly went into the RA last time trying to shorten that time frame a little bit so that we'd have more time to do studies. We weren't successful, but we'll keep trying, because I think it's more important to get all of those studies done than to be arguing over CPM text for a year before the conference.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? I see none, so thank you, Cindy. That puts me in a very good position, because we can end up more than earlier than expected with this first day. However, we've heard already quite a lot of things towards 5G, and you are now fully aware of the process we are in, and you may think about this process as well, because I can inform you that the ITU and the administrations of the ITU are definitely thinking about a further enhancement of the process itself. Cindy pointed out that Canada tried it last time, and it will not be the last time to discuss this issue, so we will take this into account, and at least for the German administration, and I guess I can speak for most of the European administrations, we are quite aware that we need to think about a better adaptation to the process and end up with good results, and allowing maybe also further studies up to the CPM in order to increase the process here. So with this one, I would like to wish you a very pleasant evening. The workshop will continue tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, German time, sharp, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and see you all tomorrow. Have a great evening. Thank you.